You just roll that. It's wonderful to have you here.
I'm so excited. I can't believe you get to do this as a class, that you get to read books on like self-improvement as an assignment. You're so lucky. This is so good.
Yes, yeah. Can you turn the mic down a little bit? We not had it this year, so we're cranking it out. Well, yeah, so you're going to feel like an expert in this class. You can teach it if you're running a company. Thanks for taking the time away from your business, away from your family. This is it's quite generous of you to be here. As I was telling you, the course is on mindset. We have undergrad students, there might be a couple of grad students who snuck in, that probably 40-50% business, and then 50% everything else, including science, humanities, engineering, dance. You have student athletes, you have musicians, and so it's a really diverse group. It's a really fun group. But we talk basically about three topics: your background, your business, and your mindset. And so we'll dive in, I'll get started, and then they're going to jump in and ask a bunch of questions that you know. So if it's okay, and it's not too personal, I want to just ask about your background for context. So where were you born? Where did you grow up, and tell us a little about your family size?
Great. I sound echoey. Do I sound okay?
You turn down a little bit.
Just don't want to annoy everyone with my voice for the next hour.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just start talking.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm proudly Colombian American. I was born outside of Miami, but my parents got divorced when I was really young. My mom was a single mom of 3 for about the first 6 years of my life. She moved in with her sister, and we were like a crazy family of like, I don't know, just a lot of girls. There was a lot of girls in a small apartment. It was wild. But my mom met my stepdad, and we moved to a very rural town in Wisconsin, so I had very big contrast from this, Miami upbringing to a small town in Wisconsin. And he was an orthodontist, and it became this very simple, different upbringing. But one thing that it gave me was incredible perspective on what matters most in life when you strip away all of the unnecessary things. So I have 2 older sisters, and having a role model, my stepdad started his own orthodontic practice, and he showed me what entrepreneurship looked like from that perspective. And I remember just being so curious about that and wanting to help. I don't know what it was. I was like, can I seal envelopes? Can I do this? Can I do that? I was too young, but by the time I was 13, I was making retainers for him. And I remembered being so young in this idea of I'm sure you've all had braces, but if you have a retainer, they make a mold of your mouth, and then they put your name on the top, and then you get to pick what color your retainer is, and you put a name in there. And so he set up a workshop for me in our garage, and I remember getting the mold, and I was just looking at the teeth, and there'd be someone's name on the top, and I just felt so excited to make a product for somebody I've never met before. And they had such a specific taste, and I thought that was so cool that somebody was going to be able to wear this product every night when they go to sleep, and I was the one that got to make it for them. And so I think that's like my first memory of this desire of being in relationship with a customer, if you will, and serving them. And I think that was the idea of that was just so cool to me. It felt so special that I could be part of that.
How old were you at the time when you were working
I
in
was
dental practice?
tweens. I was a tween, and then I did that all throughout high school and I waitressed, and I guess I really realized I was good at being of service to people.
I think early exposure to a job and customers and selling is something that's just irreplaceable for a young person. You talked about your stepfather. How about traits and lessons that you learned from your mom?
So my stepfather was good at his craft, and my mom was a big thinker. She was like, you have 1 orthodontic practice, why don't we have 10? And so she would go from town to town. Again, the town that I grew up in was only 2,000 people. And she would find a building and she would rent it out and create an orthodontic practice. And so then my stepdad would then, she expanded the business, so she had a bigger picture of what he was capable of creating. And so the two of them, I thought, was such an interesting dynamic of he was able to do his craft and she was more of this like business mindset of expansion.
Interesting, because
My mom didn't graduate college either, so I think that's something to be said about some entrepreneurs are just born with this big picture thinking.
it's the hustle mentality, the willingness to do anything that we'll actually talk about. Some of the things that you graduate from a great school, you might think I'm not going into that area. It's like it's not prestigious enough, it's not shiny enough. I'll tell people, don't overlook, we call it like the dirty fingernail businesses or like the service businesses. There's profit and they make money every month. You can sort of build a great life, and then as her mother showed, you can actually, even though dental practice is a profession, but like some of these service businesses, you can do roll-ups and you can do, scale them and roll them up and sell them to public companies. So it's interesting. Take your business education and look at a traditional business that hasn't done it in a while and look at how to scale it like her mother did. So you're in Wisconsin, and you famously have, I don't say famously, but in all the interviews and articles, they talk about several businesses that didn't make it before Kitsch. And there was one that you started with your mother, and you seem to have this knack for self-financing and not raising money. Can you talk about the business you started with your mother and how you financed it?
Yes, so there's a couple first businesses. So my mom started a gift shop in Wisconsin. My grandparents were actually retailers, and then my mom became a retailer as well. She actually took the top floor for the dental practice and then the bottom floor made it a retail shop. And so the people, when they were waiting, they could shop for gifts for friends or whatever. So I would go on buying trips with her. And buying trips would be like going to Atlanta to a trade show, and I got to see the wholesale side of the business. And I remember being like, I'm really ready to start a business. I know exactly what I need to do. And I said, Mom, we need to go digital. We need to take this boutique and we need to put it up online and we need to start a store. And I know you set aside a small amount of money for me to get married, but can I take that money and start a business? Because I hope by the time I get married, I can pay for my own wedding. And so she gave me my wedding money, and I started my first LLC, which was Cassie'sCouture.com. And I took all of the product pictures and I put them up on the website myself. And at this point, I had just got accepted in University of Minnesota. So that fall, I was going to be going to school. And I remember trying to juggle that and sell my mom's gift items on Cassie'sCouture.com. Clearly didn't know what the word couture meant at the time, but that's okay. But yeah, and so that was my first business, and there was something about it that, I was going to school. I was where all of you are at a little younger if you're just starting school, and I just remember being like, I don't think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And it was sad because I knew that was just my wedding money. It was just gone. And I also didn't even know if I was gonna get married. But yeah, and so but it was sad, but I was also just like, I know this is not what I want to do. There was such an opposite from that experience of making retainers. I did not have the same fulfillment when you guys were talking about like what does success mean to you. I didn't really feel fulfilled when I was taking somebody else's product and taking a picture and putting it up on a website and just getting orders and putting it in a box and shipping out. It didn't feed me like making that retainer. And I wasn't even getting paid I mean my parents were paying me, but it was like pennies. But it didn't feed me like making the retainers did. And so I closed that business and I was doing my undergrad at University of Minnesota. And then I started another business, and that was a jewelry company with my mom, where we were importing jewelry, and that's when I learned the beautiful skill set of doing door-to-door sales. that is a skill set that maybe none of you will ever have to do, but I highly recommend because it is very humbling. And so but the business was actually doing pretty well, and I was more in touch with the customer versus like an online store. And so that's actually what brought me out to Los Angeles.
How many of you have taken Colin and Garrett's sales mindset course? Great course, right? Love it. All right, this would be a spokesperson for it. Tell us no matter what business you go in, why personal selling is such a vital skill for everyone.
If you bring a product in, this is my personal belief, and this is from just my years of being rejected so many times. If you put a product in front of somebody, you can just see their full body reaction. I tell because I know Nikeo, I know Tony Co, we talk all the time. I mentor a lot of other female entrepreneurs. I say, set it up at a farmer's market. You'll know right away whether people want your product or not. They're gonna come by and they're gonna be like, ooh, what's this? Or they're gonna be like, don't make eye contact with that lady. It's very clear that people just will have a reaction to your product or they don't. And when you do door-to-door sales, when you're going, and it's from a B2B perspective too, when you walk in and you show the product, they're like, manager's not here. If it's really good to be like, can I buy one? And you see it, it's infectious. And so when I was doing the jewelry, it was hard, and I was like, you know what, I need to get out of Minnesota, I need to go to Los Angeles because I know, this is a story I told myself, I know there's more stores in LA. It's just Minnesota, they don't get my products. They just don't get it. I need to be in more fashionable stores, I need to be in more fashionable city. So I packed in my car and I moved to Los Angeles and I'm like, I'm gonna make it in this big city. I had $2,000.
That's the beauty of this city, is that so many people come here chasing their dreams, and it's so creative. It's the home of storytelling and entrepreneurship and content.
Mm-hmm.
And you're here at college chasing your dreams, but so many people come to LA with that type of mentality. And it's such a great entrepreneurial culture. There's not, many towns, it's a one industry town. If that industry is slow, then the town is bad. This is such a diverse economy. It used to be heavy aerospace when I was your age. And now it's so much going on. So you come to LA with $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you at that point?
I was just turned 21.
Wow. So you didn't finish. Did you
No,
finish?
I finished.
Okay, and you move out here, and tell us what you did for work, where you lived.
So when I had the gift shop with my mom, so I've always been extremely responsible. When I had the gift shop with my mom, we had brands that we were selling, and I was like, which of these brands is based in Los Angeles? And I found one that I loved, and I called them and I said, do you have any jobs? I want to move to Los Angeles. And they're like, I don't understand what this dynamic is, but anyway. So then I found this company, and I asked for a customer service job because I knew I needed to have a job, and I moved in with my cousin. And my thought was, I would do customer service, and then I would sell my jewelry on evenings and weekends, and life would be great. And I would just build. And so I moved out here, and I'm working this customer service job, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't work the customer service job because it's too much time here, and I'm not enough time on my business. That's why my business isn't successful. So I quit the customer service job, and I'm like, I'm going all in on this jewelry business. Jewelry business fails. It was the same, people didn't like it in Minnesota. People didn't like it in Los Angeles either. It's just like, I wasn't listening. So then I moved up here, and so then what does any responsible person with a 4-year degree do? I packed up my car, and I got a job managing a cupcake shop. Because it started at 4 o'clock in the morning, I got to end at 2, and then I got to get a loan because it was a manager role, so I got a loan, and I went back to school at FITM for night courses, and then I got a job working on the weekends at a clothing store. And that was another humbling moment. I mean, I think that's probably every graduate's biggest fear is, what if I can't get a job? Am I gonna have to work at a place that has nothing to do with my 4-year degree? It's okay. just know it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay because you just have to know that something greater is coming. And here's what happened. So I'm working at this cupcake shop in the morning, going to school at Fit'em, working at the clothing store on the weekend. And this guy comes in, he's talking on the phone, he's like, oh, we really need a jewelry designer. We really need a jewelry designer. And I was like, ding. I've never designed a piece of jewelry in my life. I really haven't. And I was just working with vendors and we were making products this way. So I said, oh, I heard you just say that you needed a jewelry designer. I'm a jewelry designer. Can I be considered for this role? And he's like, sure, you can come in and do a trial day. And so I went in, and the funniest thing was, it was the exact same as making retainers. So I picked up the pliers and the plastics, and I was like, I'm cranking out jewelry. And so what they were was a private label jewelry manufacturing company. So they made jewelry for Forever 21, for Urban Outfitters, and all of these retailers. And it was incredible to me because remember, I'm service-minded. I love serving a customer. And I realized at that job, well, let me take a step back. I got the job. I got the job, and I remember him saying, I'd love for you to start. Well, what's your rate? And I remember thinking in my mind, just doing the fastest math. I was like, okay, I'm working at the cupcake shop, I'm working at the clothing store. How much do I need to do? How much do I need to get paid in order to be able to quit all the other things? And then I'm almost done with school, and I was like, $25 an hour. And he's like, okay, you can start on Monday. I was like, should have said 30, and I just remember being like, I'm so bad at negotiating. So I started, and I was one of the only employees. So that was the other thing too, is like, it was closer. It was closer to where I wanted. I was one of the only employees. It was almost like I own this business. I got to do everything. I got to do costing. I got to meet with buyers. I got to work with the product. I got to see production. And it was like, I think everybody's like, I want to have the coolest, biggest, flashiest job when I get out of college. Working at a really small company, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, gives you that full picture so that you can really experience what it's like to take the garbage out at night and meet with the big buyers. And that's what I got to do, and that was really incredible.
It's a variety of experience in a short period of time. You're still in your early 20s going through jobs. Was there a point at which in LA where you didn't have an apartment and you were sort of living in friends' couches?
Yes. So when I packed right before when I quit the jewelry company, I sold my mattress, which was my last big asset, and I started couch surfing. Thankfully, I had made friends, and I had a sister that lived pretty far north of here, so that's why I was getting up at 4 a.m. because I had to drive all the way down on Larchmont Boulevard. And fun fact, that's where the cupcake shop was. And when I would take breaks on work, I would walk around that neighborhood, and I'd close my eyes and I'd just say, one day I want to live here. One day I know I've made it if I can live in this neighborhood. And I remember looking at this one brick house, and I'd be like, you know what, that's my dream house. Like, this is the life that I want to live. In 2013, I bought the house across the street from the house that was my dream house. I didn't realize that was going to be the view that I would have, not the actual house, but that getting that job at the cupcake shop, I would have never walked in the neighborhood. I would have never even thought that would be the neighborhood that I wanted to live in. It's like there was so much goodness there, and I loved working at the cupcake shop. That was really fun for me too.
A couple things. First of all, does anyone know where Hancock Park and Larchmont Village is in LA? So you talked about Larchmont.
Yeah.
Where is Kitsch located?
Yeah, so we have 200 employees, but we're fully remote.
Oh, wow. For some reason, did I see an
But-
address?
Yeah, that's our office is on Larchmont.
That's what I thought. So let me just step back about, graduating with a great degree, all these ambitions, everyone thinking there might be a right path for me, a right job, all these things. There is no right path. You sort of make it the right path. How did you move from Minnesota with all these dreams, and you're living on your friends' couches, and partly in your car and couch. How do you let that not defeat you? How do you reframe that?
I've just always had so much joy in my heart. I also lived in a third world country. I think living in a third world country definitely gives you perspective. And even even if I didn't have my mattress anymore and an apartment, I really remember being like, I have a car, I have a computer, I made it. And like, you know, I have this saying, the secret to having it all is knowing you already do. And I genuinely believe that it's all a feeling. And what that means is like, like every single thing, every single time when you want something, just keep pulling back the layers. Keep pulling back the layers and being like, why is it that I want this thing? Is like, I'll give you an example. So when I first started Kitsch, it was actually right before I started Kitsch, I would take my dog and I would walk up and down Rodeo Drive at 7 o'clock in the morning because I had this idea that having designer clothes was success. And I was like, how cool would it be and I would take my dog and I'd walk up and down Rodeo Drive and I'd be like, I'm pretending like I'm shopping right now. And I remember standing in front of Valentino and just closing my eyes and picturing myself getting bags, signing the receipt, and walking out of the store with bags. And after doing that a few times, I realized I don't even need that thing. It was just the feeling of freedom to be able to do that thing was enough for me. It was enough. And so then I was like, I don't even need it. And I just stopped doing that. I didn't even need to do it anymore because it was just like it was so much easier to just find the feeling than to strive for walking out with the bags in my hands.
I want to return to that when we get more to mine. No, because there's a larger lesson in there about sort of attachment, wanting, all those things, but also the visualization and knowing that you already have these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll return to that.
Okay.
So let's shift to Kitsch. What was the idea and the first product? What made it unique and differentiated? And just tell us the early stage of selling it.
Sure.
This is now your 6th, 7th, 8th
Yes,
business?
I think it really, if I'm not including businesses that actually registered, it'd be my 8th business. So
By 8th business by 25.
By 25 years old, yeah. And so I was working at a jewelry company and I saw how to do private label manufacturing and I loved it. I remember designing for companies, like I said, Hot Topic, and I just like loved being of service. So I realized that was a superpower of mine and I thought, you know what, I can do this. It's just getting, I was already meeting with buyers, so I already knew the contacts, so I was like, I can do this on my own. So I met with one buyer and I said, here are 4 new designs, would you buy them from me? And she's like, sure. And I was like, okay, if I can secure this order, then I think I have, and I had saved up $30,000 by the time because I didn't have rent to pay. Thank you for everybody who let me sleep on their couch. But I remember thinking like, okay, I can do this again. And I liked the private label aspect, but I also knew there was no value long-term in creating a private label company.
Explain what private label is so they understand.
Private labeling is, so let's say I design a product and I would show it to a customer like Anthropologie or Forever 21 or Urban Outfitters, and I would say, do you like this design? And they would say, yes, I'm gonna order 20,000 units. And then they would give you a purchase order, then you would do all of the sourcing and manufacturing and delivery of the goods according to their vendor manuals, and you would deliver it to them per their desired time frame. And then they would take the product, put it on the floor, and as a customer, you would have no idea that I made that product or that was my design. And
so the primary advantage of private labeling is?
That you don't have to hold inventory, and that you have a secured purchase order.
You don't usually have the risk of sell-through, so if it doesn't sell, they own it, the Gap owns it, and they have to pay it. The primary disadvantage of private labeling is?
There's no security. You could just get one order, you don't have anything, there's no brand value. Long term, and then you're constantly having to design every single day. And you have to compete against however many other vendors for those 5 SKUs that they're thinking about purchasing. It's a great way, and that's how initially I bootstrapped Kitsch, was I would take these little private label orders on the side, and then I started my product. My very first product was a handmade hair accessory. And so I did not invent this product. So that's the other thing that I think is really important for everybody to know. I saw a product in the marketplace, it was being sold on Etsy, it was being sold at other places, and I could tell there was a demand for the product. It was not the best product that could possibly be on the marketplace. So what I did was I refined it, I handmade it. There were really small edits. It just needed to be bigger, and the ends of it needed to be sealed. And so what I did was I bought my own materials downtown Los Angeles. I went home, I made it bigger, tied the elastic, and then took a lighter and sealed the end, and all of a sudden my product was the best one in the marketplace. I mean, it was not rocket science whatsoever. But as we all know, well, I would like to think we all know this, but there's a very fine line between talent and hard work. And I think the thing that I did versus anyone else is nobody worked harder than I did on this one product. And I went back doing door-to-door sales, I went and did trade shows, I did flea markets. Every single opportunity that I had to sell, I did it. I would go home, if somebody said, it's too small, I would go home and I'd fix the product, I'd make it custom for them, I'd be back the next day, I'd say, oh, I fixed everything, here you go. And it was like, but here's the thing that I think was the secret to Kitsch's success was people reordered. And I think that that is such an undervalued aspect of business, especially when it comes to commodity business, our product-based, consumer product-based business, is we do not focus on this idea of you have to keep the customer and build that relationship with them. And if you're not doing that, then it's just marketing. It's just marketing. And so for me, it was really maintaining that relationship and making sure like they were satisfied, that they would come back again and again and again. And I would ask them questions. What else? They would say, you know, like, what else can you make me? And I'd say, what else do you want? And those were the types of, I mean, I didn't write a business plan. I didn't write a business plan. My business plan was simple: make products, sell products, get reorders hopefully, and that was it.
Your direct contact with the customer, you saw that with Hype Advice when Kimberly Robles was here, allows you to have like just perfect intelligence on what they want, and you can read their mind, you can read their reaction, and people were ordering and they were pushing you into new products and new extensions and things like that. So you had that confidence that I'm onto something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're still selling door-to-door and direct. What's the next step for distribution? Give us a couple milestones of growth.
Yeah, so I got my first big order, and it was from Nordstrom Kids. And I say that because all I wanted to be was in Nordstrom at the time, and the buyer that came knocking was Nordstrom Kids. And I had no ego about it, I was like, I will take the order. They placed I'm still operating out of my apartment at this time, and they placed a relatively large order. And so at that point I had friends or connections that were helping me make all of these hair elastics. And I sourced one project that was a little too big to one person, and the day it was due, she called me up and she's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't even start yet. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So my husband, he would not mind if I told you this, he is 21 years sober, and he called up Sober Living, and he said, hey, does anybody wanna come over and make hair ties at our house? And so we had a collective group of people come into my living room, and we were cutting and tying hair ties, and it was such a sprightly and interesting conversation, and I cannot thank them enough for helping me get that Nordstrom order out. And the next day I had an LTL truck, which is less than truckload, pull up right in front of my apartment, and I'm loading boxes into the truck, and that was my first order, and it was a $13,000 order. And I remember walking to the bank, and my husband gave me a dip and a kiss while we cashed that check, because we knew that we were going to be able to pay off our credit cards. So.
That's awesome. What a great way to anchor the memory.
Yeah.
That should be your thing every time you get a big order.
We do that.
That's so nice. And what's the feeling like when someone believes in you to give you cash and hard-earned money for a product that you bought?
That's such a great question. I actually don't know if I would word it like that, because I think there's a level of co-creation. I'm believing in the retailer and the retailer's customer, and they're like, it's a relationship. And so I had so much pride in my work that I knew you know what it was? This is really interesting. Every single vendor that I worked with, they would always say, you're always on time. You're always responding to emails so quickly. You're one of my only vendors that actually followed the vendor manual. Again, there's a fine line between talent and hard work. Like I'm dyslexic. I had to work so much harder to be able to get to that place, and I knew that I had to triple check every single step. And so when they would bring those big orders to me, it was like I was more proud, because I knew that they trusted me versus another vendor to give a $1 million purchase order to deliver on time, because I knew that they gave me the space, because I had such a great track record with them.
But the trust it is important. It's humbling when someone, whether it's an individual or a company, and you feel that feeling of, oh, this is starting to get traction and momentum there. We're going to survive another day. I mean, there's a lot of that, and especially with businesses with inventory. If you're
Yeah.
sort of like, how much money did you raise from outside investors?
$0.
$0. Did you and you maintained that throughout?
Yes. We didn't even have a revolving line of credit until about 1.5 years ago.
Like, you didn't factor your receivables?
No.
So
No, I didn't. I felt like with the bank, we didn't even have a revolving line of credit.
So let's understand how difficult this is, right? Well, you have a business and it's growing. So you get paid by Nordstrom's your $13,000, and you have another order for $25,000, $30,000, $50,000. If you're growing, they're getting bigger. And so your cost on that is probably all of your cash. So you've got to figure out how to make the next orders with the money you just collected. And if it's going this way, you're always going to be undercapitalized.
Exactly.
So how did you pull it off organically?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, and I think that so many people glamorize this idea of, oh, they were overnight success. Oh, we get so many orders. Oh, Nordstrom picked me up day one. You don't have enough time to make the mistakes. You don't have the breathing room. I think someone said this before. Like, I want to have that luxury of being able to like help people when they ask. Like that, it's that concept of being able to be like, I want to be able to actually say yes when the orders start to come to me. And we didn't, I started Kitsch 15 years ago. It was so slow and organic, and I asked for just the right amount of orders that I was able to sustain, and then I was extremely responsible. Taking a step back, I didn't write a business plan, and I didn't realize I was doing this at this time, and I highly recommend this to anyone, whether you're starting a business or not. I wrote a lifestyle plan, which is similar to, I think, what your exercise was for everyone, but a little different in a sense where I sat down and I said, what does my perfect day look like? How do I want to spend my time? I was so intentional about it. Do I go out to dinner? Do I spend my weekends with friends? Am I going to birthday parties? What do I, what do I work out? What time do I go to bed? What time am I waking up in the morning? And I think we don't ask ourselves that question. We just kind of get into this routine. I mean, I know it's very different for you because you have classes and you have things to do, but you have a schedule that you need to maintain. But once you're exiting school, like really get honest with yourself. What does that look like? What does that feel like to actually be in control of this idea of what the perfect life that you want? Because unless you're clear or at least trying to finesse that, it's pretty unattainable because you don't have a direction in which you wanted to go. So when I started Kitsch, I created a lifestyle plan, and in that lifestyle plan, my intention was pretty simple: make great products that people love, and the other one was I wanted financial freedom. And it helped me to say no to birthday parties. I mean, say no to traveling. I I eat frozen burritos from Trader Joe's every single day for almost a year. And you know, it put me on a path that gave me extreme focus. And I think that, you know, when you said, like, how do you maintain the cash flow? Every single day, it was like I was looking at that balance sheet. I was making sure if an order was coming in, and when you do small boutiques, you're not doing that terms with them. So that was that ability to get that immediate cash. If I needed $200, I would go out and sell it on the street. Like I would be hustling to do that in order to make sure that I could wait that 60 days for that Nordstrom check to come in.
So your larger buyers are gonna take terms, 30 to 60 days, and they are very good at even stretching those, once you've got a really good relationship. So the fact that you went out there and hustled cash sales to like improve cash flow. How far into the venture did you feel, because people do sort of read the tech headlines and think these things happen quickly. You know, generally speaking, almost anything takes at least 5 years before you even know if you're onto something. And you've got enough, and 10 years before you like have a business that you know can last. How long did it take you to sort of feel like this is a business that has staying power?
I'm still surprised that people even know that I have a brand. Like I'm still to this day, I'm like, oh, you know the brand? That's so cool. You know, and I mean, I don't ever talk about our financials. What you see online is because sources say, and you're more than welcome to Google it. But it is, to me, like the financial aspect of it, I never looked at it. It's the daily joy. It's the daily joy that I get. Like even just yesterday, I was leaving the office and I was like, I love doing this. It was the same amount of joy that I had day one. It was the same success, that same energy of success that I had day one that I still have today. And that's why I think it's so important that you don't do it just for the money. You don't do it for the money. The money is the byproduct. And so yeah.
So I want to ask students if they want to ask questions about the business. We'll dive into mindset a little bit, but so many of you had questions, and I don't know if Sophia or Ashley or Megan, you had some great questions. Even if you didn't submit a question, you're welcome to ask one on the business now, and we'll talk about mindset a bit. Questions? I'm going to turn off my mic so they can use that.
Hi, my name's Emily. Thank you so much for coming. This has already been amazing, so informative and inspiring. I was wondering how you went from getting your first few clients, you said were still selling at your apartment once you bought Nordstrom, but how did you go from the first few customers to getting those big vendors like Nordstrom? What was the kind of in between there?
So there was the door-to-door sales aspect and there was the private label that I had going. And I begged every private label customer if they would carry the brand, and they wouldn't. They only wanted my product private label. So I was getting the volume and relationships with my suppliers overseas from building the private label part of my business. But the brand was only selling boutiques, spas, salons, hair salons, and it was just only like individual ones. So I knew I wanted to get bigger retailers, and I was like, how do people do this? So downtown Los Angeles, there's a wholesale market where you put your product in a showroom. I couldn't afford to be in a showroom. So I walked around and I was like, hey, I'll work for free for you. Can you give me that corner of space? I'll sell every product in your showroom like it was my own, in exchange for being able to have my product in front of bigger retailers. And that's how I got Nordstrom. How I got Ulta was I reached out on LinkedIn and to the buyer, and I was like, you know, I'm making all these really unique products, would you like to see it? And no response, and I just kept showing her like all the newness all the time, and she said, you know what, are you gonna be at Cosmoprof? I'll stop by your booth. And I remember being like, what is Cosmoprof? Which is one of the biggest beauty trade shows. And I said, you know, I'm not gonna be in the actual show, but I just so happened to be in Las Vegas during this day, can I take you to tacos? And so that's how we got into Ulta, was we had we asked for a one-on-one meeting, and you just get really creative. And a no is not a no. You have to like be like, no, I'm not gonna be at Classroom Prof. It's like, I'm not gonna be at Classroom Prof, but I will be outside of Classroom Prof. Do you wanna meet me outside of it? So it's like things like that. But I mean, I have no shame. I'll go to LinkedIn, I'll send people messages on Instagram. I still do that now.
You have that no shame, but it's also like no fear of rejection because she's been selling to people face to face for so long, and she's been told no for so long that it doesn't even faze her. It's really, really, it's not a reflection of her, it's not her ego. Like that is really a big deal.
You know what the difference is though, is I think a lot of entrepreneurs are looking that was a wonderful introduction that you gave me, by the way. I don't speak on panels, that was one of the first panels that I've ever spoken on. People really idolize this idea of entrepreneurs going on podcasts and panels and doing all this stuff. I didn't do any of that. It was not about me. Kitsch was never about me. It's about focusing on the customer, focusing on the expansion, getting the product, getting those reorders. I only started doing any of this a year ago. I'm so not media versed. Like it's just, I'm not prepped for this. So, but anyway, that was a very long-winded answer.
Lucky us.
Yeah.
Good timing. Someone else have a question over here?
Thank you so much for coming. I was kind of wondering, how do you effectively build a team around you that complements your strengths while also making sure you get kind of vibe with them and make sure that they have the same vision that you have?
It's the best question. It really is the best question because you cannot build a business without great people. You just really can't. So the first part is, how do you build a team that complements my strengths, weaknesses? I'm a firm believer in Patrick Lencioni's whole business philosophy. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, 5 Temptations of a CEO. I love the book Who. I am so hungry to do a good job. I don't have an MBA, but what I can say is I have 15 years of on-the-job experience, and I am so willing to look at my flaws and say, I did a really bad job. For a long time, I was actually really bad. I'm still working on it, I'm still a work in progress, hiring and firing. And I think, one of the hardest things is you meet someone and you're like, I really like that person. I think we should hire them. You just liked the person. You shouldn't have hired them. You just really liked them. And I think that's like, because you felt their energy, it just felt really great. But if you do any, like one of the things that I realized, if you read Eckhart Tolle's books, you get attracted to people because you have the same pain. And so what I realized is I was in savior mode. I had a savior complex. I would meet people and I'd be like, I'm gonna teach this person, I'm gonna save them, I'm gonna give them the best job, I'm gonna be the best coach, I'm gonna be the best role model for them. I think that I can do that. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made, was thinking that that was my job as the CEO of the company. And so when I started really diving deep on understanding how to do that, I realized this is not Kitsch University. I'm here to coach for sure. I can tell people how we do things at Kitsch, but I need people to come in and the very first thing that I did was I made it very clear what success looked like for their role at the company. And I told them, why is it hard to work here? Like, this is what success looks like here. If you do not think you can accomplish this, let's just agree now that this isn't gonna be. And that was really hard for me to do. That was really hard for me to do. And it got me now to this place where, if someone starts within the first 30 days, it's really easy for me to say, this is your last day here at Kitsch. And it's not from a place of like, I used to think, I'm going to crush this person. I'm going to make this person homeless on the street. The stories I used to tell myself of why I would keep somebody, it was so hard. And when you talk about mindset, like this is being an entrepreneur is a path of self-discovery. your employees will show you all of your flaws. Your customers will show you all of your ego and where you need to do the work, and it's if you're really willing and able to show up and you listen and you're willing to do the work around it, it is very, very fulfilling. And you will be a different person every single year. And I don't know if I 100% answered your question, but the book Who does a really good job, and Scaling People is also an excellent book. It is like the Bible, so when you read it, just know you're gonna be there for a minute, but it's an incredible book because the people you hire, the people we're in a mindfulness class, like the people you surround yourself with impact you so deeply, and I really wish, and I have no regrets, but like I really wish I was more particular, like really particular about who I invited into my house.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Emma. I have a question about how you're having fun with faith. You mentioned that when you came to Los Angeles, it was because you weren't really listening, that the jeweler just wasn't knowing, and that kind of brought you here and you might be on this like trajectory to a really successful company. In your opinion, do you think it's important to have that optimism, but at the same time, how do you balance taking the rejection and kind of pivot?
So I have this phrase, it's called sensible optimism. And it's not about just talking about manifestation and like, I want these things, but it's about being real. Like when I was broke, I didn't pretend like I was rich. I was like, I'm broke. And I was really realistic, but I also knew that I wasn't going to be broke for very much longer. And so you have the reality of the situation, but just always knowing what comes next. What comes next is going to be a step forward, not a step back. And having that level of sensible optimism versus like manifestation can sometimes be like, which I love to manifest, I dream really big, manifesting things all the time, but there is a level of sensible optimism, like, gosh, I've hired 4 bad employees and I've done a really bad job. But I know if I read a couple books on this and I put new processes in place, I'm doing something so that I know I can be a different person on my next hire, do something differently. So, but yeah, just know that like accepting the cupcake shop, it wasn't glamorized. When you all graduate, that's gonna be a milestone. It's gonna be a wonderful thing. You're gonna get lots of cards and money or whatever. I don't know what people get when people graduate. It is the minor stones in life that truly make you who you are. It's working at a cupcake shop. It's doing door-to-door sales. It's the things that nobody sees. It's the stuff that's just, it's not cute. That is what really builds the foundation. Yeah.
I will say, in the 20 years I've been teaching and interviewing and speaking with entrepreneurs, everyone asks like, is there a certain mold or certain characteristics or commonalities? And there's as many different types of entrepreneurs as there are businesses. But the one trait that is consistent is optimism. More than anything else. And no one wants to follow a founder or a leader who's tired, haggard, downtrodden, not thinking of it. Business is run by fuel, and I'll bet you like there aren't any people, well, 200 there may be, but just she screens for passion and commitment to the vision and the mission. That's probably a very deep cut. If someone's there without that, they're in the wrong place, and then it's easy to have a conversation that you shouldn't be here. But you heard from Pete Carroll in week 1, I live my life like something good's about to happen. Most of the stuff we worry about in life and really worry about and ruminate on, it never happens. There's bad stuff that happens. It's usually not the stuff that you sort of worried about. So focus on the things that sort of, what you focus on, you draw to yourself. So a really good statement for me, for how I would look at it. Other questions? There are a lot of hands up. Hi.
Hi, my name is Max. Big fan. I have Kitsch faces at home, so excited to be here today. But my question was, you talked a lot about how hard work sets apart from just straight talent, but I was curious, what causes that hard work for you? Like, what really drives that grit? Is it passion for your customers, passion to solve an issue that you face? Like, what was causing that for you?
So I can give you two answers. I can give you the very, very raw answer that I think is the hardest one for all of us to answer at the end of the day, why any of us do anything. I was supposed to be a boy. I was a very big disappointment. So I work very hard every day to show everybody that I was not a mistake. That's my raw answer. The other answer is, I love hearing when I bring joy to someone else's life. When I could give somebody that moment of like, oh, I love this product. When I hear someone say, this is my holy grail, I can't live without it. Like that gets me going every single day. So we all have that pain body that we sit with that makes us work really hard, whether it's validation, but that pain, we can turn that into something great. We can turn it into something great. You just can't wallow in it. And so, yeah, there's my two answers for you.
Thank you.
Learn from your mother a little bit?
Yeah, my mom had a very, very difficult, and not mad at her at all. So had to do a lot of work on that. But yeah.
Question?
Hi, Cassandra, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Samantha. I really love what you said about how success is achieved and how you also was able to attain your dreams. I'm also in the media industry, so I'm curious about what you see as the next step for Kitsch and your thoughts on where the industry is headed.
I've always had a vision for the space that I'm in. It's, I think, never been done where a female-founded, bootstrapped, certified minority-owned, certified woman-owned company has come in to Target and taken up 4 feet of space from huge conglomerates like Conair, Scunsy, and Goody. So the fact that I have done, I don't want to even say my team and I have done that is really exciting. And what my passion has always been, when we go in, so I always think about how customers shop. My undergrad at University of Minnesota was merchandising. And I never understood when somebody goes into a store, and I'll use Target as an example, they used to put all the brands that make black elastics in like a sheet on the wall. And a customer would have to walk into the aisle and they would say, which brand do I want? It's all like just a different price point. And so what I continued to pitch to Target, and I pitched to Target for 5 years before I got into Target, is that if the customer is standing in the aisle and she stops, she should be picking up 3 items, not choosing between 4 different brands of the same black elastic. And they'd be like, yeah, little girl, go away. And I just started being like, no, like, come on, like, I am that customer. Like, I don't want to shop like this anymore. Like, think about how we do things. Like, hair care should be a lifestyle. It's not just like this commoditized item. And so for years and years and years of doing that, they finally gave us the chance. And I think that I think we are inspiring others to think about their category holistically. If you're making a cream, what are the accessories that you use for the cream? And I like to use Amazon's frequently bought with strategy as an example for this. If we make solid shampoo and conditioner, that's foreign to most people. Let's create a system for them. There's a shower caddy, there's a soap bag, there's all of these things, like let's create the lifestyle around it. And I think other brands are gonna start thinking about it that way too. If people love a brand, they're willing to buy other products from them.
I skipped over this, so forgive me. Can you give us an idea of the breadth of products? Early, obviously, was hair. Tell us how you grew that, and what do you sell now? Number of SKUs.
Yeah, we have over 500 SKUs, and the whole idea of the brand is hair care from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. So from the pillowcase you use, to how you curl your hair, to shampoo, conditioner, and then the accessories you use. And the whole idea of the brand was that I never, most of the brands, they say, you can be this and you can be that, and we're the star of the show, and you know, like it's all about us. And I never resonated with brands that did that. So for me, it was like, it's all about you. We're here, we're the brand that you put in your purse and you pull it out when, you know, time, you know, like you're about to go for a run or, you know, whatever it might be. We're this supportive brand that gets you through the day. And so now, like when I hear people say, I can't live without my whatever Kitsch product, I love that because that's exactly what I was going for. It was like, we're like the best friend that's always in your purse or on your pillow or wherever.
And what would you guess from the products that you named would be the best performing products, if you were thinking about the business? Then name some of the, like,
Pillowcase, heatless curling set, shampoo, conditioner, hair ties, yeah, hair accessories, claw clips.
What would be your guess of the best performing and why? Yes?
Shampoo, conditioner, since it's recurring.
You have a reason to reorder and use it. Consumables.
Yeah. It took us a long time I shouldn't say it took us a long time to gain trust. It was for so many years when I first started with the hair elastic, and then we went into pillowcases, people would be like, you guys can't do pillowcases. You make hair accessories, like just stay in your lane. And I was like, no, I'm making pillowcases. And then when we started doing heatless curls, we're like, you guys can't do heatless curls. Just keep staying with pillowcases and hair accessories. And I was like, no, I'm making heatless curls. You guys can't do shampoo and conditioner. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do that too. And we have some stuff coming up soon that everybody's telling me not to do. And we're launching it next month. And well, hopefully I can, you know, post on my Instagram and be like, everyone in USC, did you see this? So, hopefully.
It's interesting because they're not natural. So anything that touches or concerns hair,
Mhm.
is the nucleus of your business, right?
Hair is the through line.
But there's so many different vendors and supply chains, and truly, you don't make everything, obviously, right?
All of our consumables are made in the US, but we have suppliers overseas but we design everything.
Question in the back?
Hi, thank you so much for coming. I want to ask, when you was in private labeling, what moment made you decide to like not be in private labeling anymore and like have your own label? And would you recommend private labeling to someone who's like starting entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think private labeling is a great business for like bridging the gap. When it really helped me to be able to bootstrap, so I was really grateful for that. But again, it's a hamster wheel of a business, and the amount of redesigns and designing, and you for every 50 pieces that you design, you get one picked. And that one you hope pays for the amount of time and energy that you did for the 50. But you know, when it was just me doing it by myself, it was okay because, you know, I only had my own bills to pay. But ultimately, you know, I think to answer your question, yes, I think private labeling is a great way to start because you get a lot of information from the retailers. Let the retailers do the work for you. Did they sell it quickly? Are they placing a reorder? You get a lot of intel on like, do people buy gold? Do people buy silver? Who's their target market? You also get valuable insights on how to manufacture. What are their QC policies? One of my favorite retailers to manufacture for was Forever 21, and I used a lot of their information for the infrastructure for Kitsch and how we work with our own vendors. So you know, working with other big retailers is it gives you valuable insights on if you're thinking about starting your own business too.
I'll add to that. I had a private label manufacturing business with my sister. We manufactured private label home fragrance products, so candles, potpourri, incense for the Gap and Republic, Bath and Body Works, all the boutiques in the mall, not usually the anchors. And for all the reasons that she said, there's good and bad. The good is they own it, so you ship it and they're supposed to pay you. Some retailers are not quite as honest, and they'll still try and stick you with it if they don't sell it. But the valuations are much different. So If it's private label, and so businesses are typically valued on EBITDA, which is free cash flow, you'll get a multiple of that. So let's say you're doing $10 million in business, and your private label business, you got $1.5 million of EBITDA. And if you go to sell that business, you'll probably get 3 to 4 times that. If you're a brand with brand equity, I mean, you think of Kitsch, but think of Ralph Lauren, think of brands you really know that they're going to get 15, 20, 30. Not like a tech company maybe, but like close, because they've built a brand that customers recognize and are loyal to. You don't get that with private label. You're a contract manufacturer, so that's a disadvantage. But there are some advantages. You still have cash flow issues. You still have how do you finance up the curve, things like that. Inventory, Have anyone taken Paul Orfala's class? Paul Orfala? Paul Orfala's the founder of Kinko's. Also dyslexic and learning differences. But one of his favorite quotes is, "The dirtiest word in business is inventory." Because if you could be like, all your money's in inventory, you can really get a problem. So, other questions?
So you talked about in your early days taking already existing products and improving those. So I'm just curious to know your process in like improving the already existing products and creating something that customers continue to buy.
I'll give you an example. Shampoo and conditioner bars was not something that I created. There have been shampoo and conditioner started as bars. And it was a very niche market. It was only sold in natural food grocery stores. And it was made with saponified oils. It wasn't hair care. It was just soap. And I remember being like, why can't we just take hair care ingredients and make shampoo and conditioner bars out of it? And I remember my supplier said, well, it's just a lot of work. Okay, let's do it. And that's what we did. And we literally took, I was like, what are the ingredients to make great shampoo and conditioner? And we put it in a bar. And we made real hair care bars. And with the right pH and, with beautiful smells and creative shapes. And we redid shampoo and conditioner in solid form. So that's another example of, this was something that people want. I knew people wanted it because it's been around for so many years. Just nobody was doing it in a modern way.
Hi, my name is Simran, so thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I was curious, so far I'm sure you've interacted with a lot of people throughout your experiences both in service and sales. I was wondering, what would be your biggest takeaway on consumer or people behavior from these interactions?
I'm not quite sure what the question was. I'm so sorry.
I was wondering, what's your biggest takeaway on consumer behavior at large? I'm sure it's different industry specific as well, but what's your takeaway on how consumers react to things? What's their first instinct in terms of purchases? How you can give them the best experience?
I think the bottom line is no, they will be completely honest with you. There's no reason, my watch keeps dinging because every single review that comes through our website, I read it. And if you give people the platform to give you all the feedback, they will give it to you, and they like it. They really like to tell you. And if you give them the space to tell you what they think of the product, they'll tell you. And I think everybody really likes to review products. And I think that's one of our superpowers is we read all the reviews, and we are not afraid to make edits to the product and go back and change it. And people really feel respected and heard when you do those things. And the other thing is we respond to almost every single comment that comes on our Facebook group, on our Instagram, on our TikTok. We let people know we hear them, that we're not just a brand that's here to take your money, that we really value them as a customer. We actually just won in the United States an award for customer service. like, we didn't apply for it, it was just like the people have spoken. We won an award for customer service. And that was one of the most amazing awards that we could have ever won, because that means that, it's more than just the products.
And can you share, in terms of metrics and what you look at as the CEO, there's obviously customer acquisition costs and long-term lifetime value of the customer, but talk about your focus and the importance of
So I'm not a traditional CEO. It's rare that founders, I think, stay in this seat for as long as I have, but I think that's because I bootstrapped Kitsch and didn't have any private equity folks kicking me out. But I've always valued what's called an NPS score, Net Promoter Score. And every year we do a study and we ask people that are in the general public to review the brand. And it is brutal. And they will give you 100% of their opinions on who your brand is, how they relate to the brand, what are the words that they think of when they hear about your brand. And so as a company, one of the KPIs that I set up for the team is a significantly higher than average Net Promoter Score for the brand itself. And then also internally as a team, Net Promoter Score, meaning a Net Promoter Score, if you're not familiar with it, is how likely is someone willing to refer your products to someone else? How likely are your employees to refer Kitsch as a brand that they would recommend to a friend, oh, you should come and work here. And to me, if both of those things are high, then you have a winning business. You have a winning business. So those are two things that I value highly as the CEO.
I was just wondering, kind of more from a macroeconomic standpoint, as we're sort of seeing especially with some of the retailers that you already mentioned, I saw something there yesterday that Forever 21 is considering bankruptcy again. So it seems like you already established yourself as kind of an e-commerce brand off the get-go. But moving forward, what's your business plan and outlook on, malls seeing less foot traffic and Macy's, Kohl's, Forever 21 and all? They're all kind of closing stores around the U.S. So what's your plan to kind of move?
I love this question. So when people say, oh, we're an omni-channel brand, you hear people say this all the time. I hear people say this all the time. When they say, oh, I'm an omni-channel brand, usually that means they're a D2C company and then maybe they have like one retailer that they work with. I don't consider that omni-channel because they're probably only in one category and then they've got their D2C and then one retailer. And to me, I think that is an extremely risky business. We have over 500 SKUs. The through line is all hair, but we do our sleep category, we do shampoo and conditioner, we do our accessories, and then we also do like our spa items, so like spa headbands. And so we're omni-channel in the products that we offer, and then we're true omni-channel when it comes to our retail distribution. So we have our D2C, which is a third of our business. We have our wholesale, which is a third of our business, and we have Amazon. So what we have the luxury of doing is, let's say it's January, and that just happens to be a month where people are leaning more into trying new shampoos and conditioners. We're gonna invest heavily in shampoo and conditioner on Amazon and meta marketing, because this is the time where we buy it. Then let's say it's November and it's gifting season. People are more in retail. We're gonna invest heavily into Ulta and pillowcases because it's a lot more gifty. And that's the luxury that we have, that we aren't relying, not one aspect of our business is more, and when I say, I think D2C, Amazon I feel like is one of the most interesting ones but we do manage our whole marketplace. We are beholden to Amazon. D2C, we're beholden to Shopify, we're beholden to Meta. Wholesale, we're beholden to our retailers, but that would take a lot to shut it all down. So we do have a significant stability. But we don't do a lot of, like we do Kohl's and we do a couple other big retailers, but we aren't doing a lot of mall retailers anymore. And yeah, I'll stop there.
No, we're still talking, but
Yeah.
like you're raising a good risk, you know.
Yeah.
But what she talked about was concentration risk, both in like a channel and a customer. So if you've got your portfolio of customers, you never want to have a large concentration on one customer. That could be a financial risk. What do you sort of peg that at 20?
Yeah, and our wholesale, we don't have 20% in it. Yeah.
You're more diversified than that.
Yeah.
The business I was telling you about, we had, the limit was more than 20, and it's dangerous. And
Yeah.
so banks won't even want to finance over a certain amount. They'll say anything over 15 or 20, they won't finance your receivables because of the risk. If that goes away, that could be the end of your business, or if there's a product recall or something like that. So it's a very good question. Who's next?
Hi, thank you for coming. I have more personal question for you. You're clearly very ambitious and driven. As a woman, have you been criticized for this? And what advice would you give for other women entrepreneurs like yourself?
Okay, so the amount of times when someone has walked into the room and introduced themselves to my husband and acted like I wasn't even in the room, that's happened a lot. I laugh about it because I don't really get too caught up in it. Where I do think I have issues is the likability trap that women face. That we have to have this certain level of likability on top of running the finances, being a great leader, making great products, and then we have to be likable on top of that. I think that's really hard, and I think that we are as the hardest people on women entrepreneurs are actually women. I think we are the hardest on other female entrepreneurs. I think we can just forget how men treat us because I don't really care. I'm still gonna do whatever I do. But the people that are the hardest, I think, are the other women. And I think we need to give them grace for being tough. When you find yourself with a female CEO and she's tough on you, she's not a bitch. She just knows what she wants. So we need to support that and because it'll never change. And the people that have to change it is the other women in the room that celebrate that.
I can share a story about this, which obviously I'm not a woman, but I had this business with my sister. And my sister would bring me to meetings because I was a lawyer, and sometimes people want to talk to the man, sometimes they want to talk to the woman. But because of what you just said, we were in a meeting with a lender asking for additional capital because the business was growing. We needed a larger loan, and when you go for a loan, they're always sort of saying like, what else can you put up, whether it's collateral or cash, or how do you improve your ratios? And this woman banker says to my sister, "Don't you have a sugar daddy that you can get some money from?" She's a CEO of a company that's doing $30 million a year, makes more money than the banker, but she says something like that, and we took one of the steps back. We left the bank within a year. It was a very well-known bank. We moved somewhere else. But you're right, sometimes the harshest comments can come from someone that's sort of in the same camp. Those are the things you remember, those like moments, those micro moments. You just like, can't believe someone professional said that to you. Other questions? Hello. Hi.
Hi, Cassandra.
Welcome to class.
Thank you. I'm crashing for a little bit. I'm Nate's friend. I'm Jade. But thank you so much, first of all, for taking the time to come talk to us. I think more than anything, you've reminded us all of the joy and the excitement of being a founder and servicing our people. But I was really wanting to tap more into the personal mindset of yours entrepreneur journey. You've been a founder since you were in your early 20s. You have more experience than anyone, more success than most of the female founders here. But you mentioned earlier that you took on mentor roles and panel roles more recently, and you didn't take on the spotlight until recently. I was wondering what kind of led to that mindset shift where you felt maybe more of a luxury or more of a time bandwidth to be able to take on these roles and to mentor other people?
So this is a tricky one for me because I think I referenced this book earlier, The 5 Temptations of a CEO. And if you read that book, you really realize, and when you go and work for someone too, it'll help you to avoid, maybe CEOs that, aren't in it for the right reason. But I never did this for personal recognition. I think that running a company takes a lot of time and energy, and if you're doing this type of stuff, it takes too much time. It really does. You can't be out there doing all of this stuff and run the company at the same time. Can you be like the front-facing founder and hire somebody else to go and do it? Yeah, you can, but then you become kind of out of touch with the business and you don't really know what's going on anymore, and then you're just kind of like building your own personal brand, which isn't. I'm not looking for that. I like to be in the business. I wear sweatpants to work. This is the most dressed up I've been in since I saw you last. Like I love being in the business. It brings me so much joy. And every single time in the past year, I'm going to be completely honest, because I have done a lot of work. Every single time when I do a panel or I do a podcast, I get a hangover from it, because it really just comes down to putting the validation into on someone else's plate. I mean, putting it out there. Did they like it? Did I do a good job? That's not my job. My job is to go back to my first mission of why I started Kitsch, make great products that people love. And it's just not. I think I have a better story to tell at some point, and I don't think that external validation feeds me the same way as my own does. Yeah.
Would you also consider yourself an introvert?
I'm such an introvert. I met Gwyneth Paltrow before. I did the podcast yesterday, and I was so awkward. And I remember meeting her, and she's like, "Hi, I'm Gwyneth," and I'm like, "Hi, we go to the same dentist." And I was like, "God, I should just not be allowed out in public." But it's also because I don't go out there and I don't practice. Like I'm not practicing being social because I just, I love working. So, but I do know that that's a muscle you flex. It is a lot of the female CEOs that you see out there doing it. They've been media trained, they really know how to do it, and it's a talent, and they're really good at it, and they love it. So, it's just not what my passion is right now.
You're really good at it. I mean, seriously, I watched, I was one of probably, there was an audience of maybe 800 to 1,000, and I was really one of 5 men lucky enough to be at that Shinoy conference. But you just exuded an authenticity and a centeredness, and also like you just really seemed joyful in what you were doing. And so that attracts people to work with you, to partner with you, to trust you, all those things, to invite you to come speak in their class, all those things. But you may not feel it comes naturally, but you really do it well.
Thank you.
And it's a joy to watch. We have time for one more question, and I want to sort of move on. You've been so patient.
I know,
in
you
front
guys
row.
have really-
Where's the mic, by the way? Wait, were you asking a question?
It's fine,
What's that?
they can ask you.
You go first, and then I'll go second. Go ahead. You guys are both being unselfish, so we like that.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. I noticed that you said it's about hiring right, and you mentioned an NPS statistic about customer loyalty. So as the leader of the ship, I wanted to know what incentive structures do you have in place, and what is it that you do daily to get the best out of the team around you and the employees that work with you?
It's such a great question. Do you know the incentive is? Pride in your work. It's one of our core values. That's it. There's no cash, but I mean, we pay really well. People just, you have to like the job. That's the incentive. And if you don't like it, it's very clear, and it just doesn't work out. You have to want to be there. And I would say 99% of their employees really do like their job. And then what was the other question? What was the incentive? The incentive is you have a great job. Forgot the second part of the question.
It was what do you do daily as the leader to get the best out of your employees, even if they are inspired and they love what they do?
Recognition for them, because it is a remote environment. We have so many great Slack channels that have nothing to do with work. Recognizing people for their birthdays. Hey, I remember when you told me 4 years ago that your favorite dessert was a bouzouki from, whatever that, Dave and Buster's, and I mailed it to you because I remembered that, it's like, it's so much more than just, and I have some of those mindfulness activities that I can share too, that I do with the team.
Thank you.
Give the last question, and we're gonna close with some thoughts.
Hello, my name's Aaron, and hearing your story and everything you've been sharing so far has been so inspiring. You briefly touched on this earlier. My question is on developing new products while maximizing customer experience, especially since sourcing and manufacturing can take some time. So would you rather prefer to perfect the product before you launch, or do you kind of launch and refine as you go?
Both. Depends on the product and the liability that is involved with it. Is it going into Target? Is it a D2C launch? But now the risk, when we weren't in our major retailers, we would just get it to market as quickly as possible. People would give feedback, then we'd go change it, we'd bring it back to market again. And that's the luxury of starting small and growing slowly. You raise a bunch of capital, you get a bunch of eyes on your business, you can't make mistakes anymore. Every launch has to be flawless. And you don't have years of trust that you built with the customer. Now we do focus groups, not focus groups, but trial groups of over 100 people for almost every product we launch. And so we already know what people didn't like, what questions are they asking, and we put that all into our FAQs before the products even go live.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you turn off that mic just so we're not getting feedback? Thanks. I want to close with one thing, and then I watched everyone as I was walking around taking great notes, so I want to come to you about sort of what you've taken away from this, and we'll go to you in a second. But I read where you said businesses are our greatest teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to explain or share your view of entrepreneurship. You talked about the process and the joy that you have, but what does it mean to you to sort of live your life and express your life through a business and through entrepreneurship? And feel free not to gloss over the hard parts, but just how has business and entrepreneurship been your greatest teacher?
I'll give you an example. I had an employee, is this recorded?
It is, but it's going nowhere.
Okay. I had an employee who she just had such a messy life. She had such a messy life. She couldn't show up to work on time. I'd call her, she was supposed to be in a meeting, she was getting her nails done. She was a creative visionary. And there was something about her that I just kept making excuses for. I just kept being like, you know what, she's just a creative. And I just kept making excuses. And then I realized I have a real issue with boundaries. I have a real issue with telling somebody this is not okay. I wanted to be likable. I didn't want to be a bad guy. And it took me a long time. I was like, well, where else in my life am I playing out the same dynamic? And I saw it with family members. I saw it in other areas of my life. This was not just business related. And so then, I practiced firing her because I knew it was going to be very ugly because I enabled the behavior for such a long time. And interestingly, in the same time frame when I fired her, I also ended a relationship with a friend. It was the same dynamic, and I was playing it out in different areas of my life. And if you listen closely, if you're willing to say, where am I at fault? We're in a safe space here. If you're not familiar with her work, Byron Katie's book, The Work, is absolutely life-changing. It is a book that really helps you to just stop and say, where is my part in this? And you no longer are beholden to everybody else's stuff because you really pause and you say, like, no, I'm actually the one responsible for this. And it's way more empowering to be in that position than it is to be like, oh, she didn't show up to a meeting again, what am I gonna, it's like, that's sort of fun.
Yeah, it's very easy to sort of live aggrieved, everyone is at fault and it's not you. A business will show you everything about yourself. If you're afraid of confrontation, these hard conversations, you're gonna have to do it.
There's a great quote.
Go ahead.
Wherever you go, you take yourself with you. And it's like, I tell myself that all the time. I could have fired that creative director, but I would have, if I did not work on that inability to have great boundaries with her, I would have hired the same employee again. And until I finally learned the lesson that I needed to work on, so.
And one quote that we also like is, this is not happening to me.
It's happening for me, yeah.
To reframe these things, because starting off, it's just like, oh, woe is me, this unfair, how is this happening? And it's usually teaching you a very important lesson. And if you really sort of back your ego out of it and look at where you're responsible or at fault, usually it's in the middle, or it's not usually black and white. You'll grow from that. I wanted to finish by asking you, because this is I didn't realize how rare it was that you come and speak, and so I'm so grateful that you accepted. And luckily we have these common friends who asked, and you trusted them. But I wanted to ask the students, there's so much that I took from this. What lessons, advice, quotes did you learn from Cassandra tonight that you're going to remember for 5 or 10 years? So I don't want you to feel exhausted tomorrow. I want you to feel seen and appreciated. So I'm going to record this for you. All right, hands up. Speak loudly. Ready? Go.
The importance of creating a lifestyle plan of how you want to live every single day.
Finding daily joy in building your business just like you did when you first started.
Life will be humbling, but you have to know that something bigger is coming.
The secret to having it all is knowing that you get already good. Entrepreneurship is a journey of self-discovery.
The team you create is almost more important than the concept.
Entrepreneurship is about building relationship with your customer, and money is only the byproduct.
Hard work is more important than anything else.
I'm just hungry to do a good job.
The minor stones make you who you are.
Sensible optimism is so important.
Rather than being serious, which is typically seen as the opposite of business mindset, actually effective.
No, those are me. The relationship with the customer is extremely important.
Entrepreneurship is self-discovery.
The secret to having it all is knowing your idea.
So optimism is key for entrepreneurship.
Consumers will be completely honest with you.
Fulfillment comes from building products that people love.
Cannot build a business without good people.
Let's thank Cassandra Thurswell. What a great class. I promised that I would get her out because her daughter is finishing her swim class and she's got to get out of here. Hopefully go watch the basketball game. We'll see you next week. Have a great week. Bye now.